I was tagged in this post on Twitter and sent this to my inbox. Tennessee woman denies promotion after fetus brain not attached. Slams state ban. Now, in these ruby red states, in these forced birther, Christo fascist GOP states, I really want to know how these couples that are impacted voted, because many times they simply think that the face of Smbortion are women that are loose and lascivious, that are just out here just running amok and just being promiscuous. When many times married women, women who actually wanted babies, are impacted by these draconian laws as well. But we don't know how she voted, how this couple voted, but I do want to get into this article. A Tennessee woman who was denied a Smbortion despite a fatal abnormality says the state's anti-Smbortion laws resulted in her losing an ovary, a fallopian tube, and her hopes for a large family. The state of Tennessee took my fertility from me, says Brianna Cecile, 34. She added that the state lawmakers took away my opportunity to have a family like my own biological family because of these horrible laws that they put in place. The mother of one says she has not felt the same since her doctor told her in January 2023 that her fetus was diagnosed with acrania, a fatal condition where the fetus has no skull bones. Then, 12 weeks pregnant, Miss Cecile was getting her first ultrasound. She attended the appointment alone, so when the doctor told her the fetus was not viable outside of the womb, she was left with only asking the doctor what she should do. However, she was left with few options. The state's near total ban prevents anyone from getting a Smbortion if there is still a heartbeat, which her fetus still had. The lawmakers make no exceptions for fatal conditions and also criminalizes physicians who perform the procedure outside of the allowed exceptions. These lawmakers want women walking around being basic, like coffins. They want women to be human coffins to non-viable fetuses. That is what these forced birthers are doing. They are cruel. Miss Cecile recalled the doctor not knowing how to respond to her question about her options. That's something no one should ever hear. The doctor set her up with a specialist where another ultrasound was conducted. That scan was more difficult, she says, because she could see the severity of the fetus's condition. I could see the brain not attached. The only advice doctors could offer was that if she had her second child, it would most likely die inside of me before 20 weeks, and she would be forced to deliver a stillborn. So they didn't have any advice for the current pregnancy that she was having, just if she were to get pregnant again. The news was crushing as Miss Cecile said her pregnancy was starting to show. Not only could she not mentally handle the well-intentioned questions about the baby's due date and sex, she says she could not be a good mom to her little boy if she was forced to go through her pregnancy and deliver a stillborn. She decided to get a Smbortion. After sobbing to receptionists at roughly 20 clinics and hospitals in a desperate attempt to get an appointment, she finally had success. A hospital in Chicago had an opening. On February 3rd, doctors performed a dilation and curettage procedure. So this is the reason why blue states are impacted as well, because these women have to travel, and it's if these women have the means to be able to travel. Some women can't just up and go from Tennessee to Chicago. You have to have money for that. So this is going to impact her body was impacted, her mind, her mental condition was all impacted, but there will be a lot more poor people that will lose their lives or health will be drastically impacted because of these draconian laws. Just 6 days after returning to Tennessee, thinking the worst was behind her, Miss Cecile started experiencing a fever and back pain. Her doctor gave her antibiotics, but something still wasn't right. She went for another ultrasound, and the physician found retained tissue left over from the fetus, which can have serious consequences. Doctors performed another procedure on Miss Cecile, hoping it would be the end. Her fever persisted, and 2 days later, she returned to the hospital where doctors discovered she had a 9 centimeter size abscess in her abdomen that encompassed some of her reproductive organs. Doctors had to perform emergency surgery on her and removed her right ovary and fallopian tube. Miss Cecile returned home after a grueling 10 days in the hospital. Now, the crazy thing about this, there was some fetal tissue remaining in her body, and it caused all of this. Imagine if she had to keep a basically dead fetus in her body for the whole remainder of the months until she delivered a stillbirth. Think about that. This is the reason why people don't understand that sepsis is so bad, and making these women be on the cusp of death is so bad. Miss Cecile and her husband has spent nearly a year trying to conceive that pregnancy. Fertility and infertility is really hard to go through in itself, she said, noting that the couple thought they'd finally gotten through the difficult stage. So when the news of the fetus condition hit, she blamed herself and asked the nurses, "Did I do something wrong?" Since her third procedure, she and her husband have not been able to become pregnant. Miss Cecile doesn't think it's a coincidence and wonders if not for the Tennessee law, would she still have her fertility? Right now, I feel like they took that away from me, the 34-year-old said of the state lawmakers. Ms. Cecile says she wanted to make clear to legislators that Smbortion is not black and white, explaining that every situation is different. Like the Texas woman Kate Cox, who was denied the procedure in her home state, Ms. Cecile wants a large family. Neither woman falls within the stereotype that many on the right are portraying as Smbortion candidates. The young mother added, pregnant people who need a Smbortion shouldn't feel like they need to beg for permission from lawmakers who do not have medical backgrounds. And that's the thing. That's the reason why I wonder what her political leanings are, because some people are like, they don't think that they are impacted because they're not like those other folks, when in actuality, they are those other folks. They are impacted just like the people of the stereotype. Often, women in these situations are deciding if we want our child to suffer after being born or waiting until they die inside of us. Think about that. You're walking around, you're visibly pregnant. People are asking you all these questions, happy about you, seeing a pregnant woman, and you are mentally being tortured at having to carry a non viable fetus. She added she still doesn't feel normal more than a year after the pregnancy. Physically, she has a scar that stretches from her belly button down to her pelvic bone that has caused her fat to become displaced. Emotionally, she said, I think about that baby all the time. While she and her husband have been trying for another baby, she often breaks down and thinks, I just want that baby. Why didn't that work out? Miss Cecile contemplated joining a group of women represented by the Center for Reproductive Rights who were denied abortions and are now fighting the state's prohibition, asking for clarity on the ban's medical exceptions. At first, she decided not to become a plaintiff. Then she changed her mind. On April 4th, a three-judge panel listened to arguments from lawyers from the center and the state about a temporary block of the ban. The center's attorneys mentioned a series of heartbreaking stories from the plaintiff, as well as a woman whose baby was diagnosed with acrania. They were referring to Miss Cecile. The three-judge panel has yet to rule on the temporary injunction in a state that is one of 14 across the nation that made abortion illegal since the end of Roe v. Wade in June 2022. After hearing the oral arguments, Ms. Cecile now wants to join the case. If someone doesn't ever want to hire me again because of what happened to me, I just don't care. I'm not going to let that bother me anymore, because she was really scared of people's opinions on this when that should really not matter. This impacts a lot more people than she's even thinking about. She's lived in Tennessee since she was 7 years old, and while she has been tempted to leave, she refuses to let the forced birther crowd force her from her home. So this is the reason why we need to continue to talk about this. It's not just in Tennessee. It's all of these forced birther states that don't listen to women, don't acknowledge that more women than the loose and lascivious women that they have in their brains, the stereotype that they have in their brains, are impacted. Lots of women are impacted. Let me know what you think about this. So the person that sent me the article about the woman from Tennessee that had a non-viable fetus, that person is a former pro-life person. And this person has been in my network for a while and sees how pro-life I am and sees all of the reasons why, because I share women's stories. Now, this person is the person that sent me this article, and I'm like, God damn, I'm in purple. And this person's like, my thoughts exactly. And I'm like, I'm so tired. I'm tired of hearing these stories of women suffering. Now, they said, I'm sorry. I never realized how many problems the pro life concept never dealt with, how many things they attached to the Smbortion program. I used to be unabashedly pro life, self proclaimed. And then I said, yeah, and so many forced birther people won't think about the humanity of women. It's sad. And they don't think of the suffering of the fetus, the non viable fetus, or even if the fetus is viable to get out of the birth canal, what if it has all these abnormalities and can't have a normal life? They continue with all the opposition to birth control and sex education, things that reduce Smbortion. Then things like this, like other exceptions to the rules that are refused in exception. So I asked the question, now that you see the repercussions, because this person has been seeing all of the things that I post, I said, what are your stances on being pro-life or Smbortion? This is the response. I still abhor the procedure by and large. I can't shake the thought of being torn apart like some of the surgeries. That said, given how pro-life is such a loaded term and how sick it is to force a woman to continue growing a dead child, how these politicians are using the procedure as cover to strip away a bunch of mostly entirely women's rights. I can't call myself pro-life anymore. There are valuable exceptions and valuable tools to reduce Smbortions that don't require laws or bans or penalties that these politicians just throw out or ban. I can't imagine how many doctors' hours will be wasted once they remove the emergency contraception from the telemedicine and mailing programs. How much further these politicians will stretch the concept of formally surgical Smbortion until it bursts. These women who suffer bodily harm from being forced to carry dead babies. It's vile, it's tyrannical. And I don't care if it's one birth in a billion that happens that way. No law should be so rigid that it would force such terror and evil upon a woman. Now, I will say this person is not yet pro choice. I know that just in how this was written, I know that this person is just like still trying to grasp that there needs to be exceptions and does not realize that there's no way to really write in these exceptions. There's no way because like it would still be a judgment call. And so I know that you guys listening to this, if you're pro-choice, you're still like feeling it. But this is how some people are going to move from pro-life to pro-choice. They're going to understand that women and doctors need to make this decision for ourselves. And so like literally, I know that it's steps in the process. We have to humanize women. We have to let women know, we have to say, this woman wanted this, and these are some of the things that have happened. We have to break the stereotype of who is actually having these procedures done. The pro-life forced birther crowd have been able to stereotype it so bad that some of these women, these pregnant women, thought this couldn't happen to me. That's the reason why they vote right along with these people. So it's going to take some baby steps, but some of these things are changing. Some of the stereotypes are changing. And I'm just letting y'all know it is a process, and you don't always have to write off some of these people right away, because there is an inkling, there's a seed that could be implanted to where it might move the needle in women's humanity, and the viability of children could become something that they actually vote on and want to change so women can, have these safe procedures. Jump in the comments. Let me know what you think about this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.